I thought I would share my actual awakening story. I didn't tell a lot of people when it first happened. Um, I tried a few people and they just kind of stared at me like they had no idea what I was talking about. So I did want to just kind of get out there and sort of tell a brief synopsis of exactly how it all came about. Um, I was very depressed at the time. My whole life, I suffered with anxiety and depression and just kind of felt very out of place in the world. I wasn't quite sure where my space was, wasn't quite sure why I felt so out of sorts. Um, and it kind of I got into introduced to Buddhism in my early 20s. I was raised in the Catholic Church. Never really got a whole lot from being in church. I did like the sense of community. I actually had some great priests growing up, and luckily, very laid back, very cool actually. Um, so I didn't have a beef with that, but I just the repetitiveness of the mass I found just sort of mundane. And Was even an older boy. Read some Buddhism, and then I kind of felt like this is right. Like there's a truth here that I've never heard before. And I first read a book and it mentioned the Four Noble Truths, and I was like, well, that sounds pretty interesting. So I did that. Um, in my 20s, there was no internet, there was no Wi-Fi, there was no YouTube to gain information. So I tried to meditate. Well, I did meditate for over a year. And although it did help me feel more peaceful, I didn't know exactly what I was doing or what I was trying to achieve. If there was an achievement, anything like that. So fell out of it, had a family, had kids, needed a job, had a job, supported my family, um, ended up getting divorced and remarried. And then I remember at one point where I was just, it kind of dawned on me that I had everything that I was supposed to have. I did everything I was supposed to do. I went to college. Um, I had a family. I had a house. I had cars. I had kids. Um, and I just thought, wow, I don't know what to do now. Like I have all these little check marks checked off, and I'm still not really that happy. Like I don't understand what's wrong. So then things just spiraled. I ended up going through a pretty ugly divorce, very depressing. And I won't get into too much of that, but it was quite a number of years, and I was not getting much better. I was very much in victimhood mentality, very much woe is me, poor me, look at all these horrible things that happened to me mode. And it was just getting worse and worse. And I ended up like losing my job, which that then added to even more stress. And I was living alone, and I was just lonely and depressed. And I actually kind of had a thought that um, I'm just gonna drink myself to death. Like I'm just gonna numb myself all day when I'm not working or functioning, and hopefully that'll be it. I get to check out of here. But for some reason, the Buddhism kind of popped in my head again, and so I started watching people like Rupert Spira and listening, and I could sense there was some truths happening, and that a lot of things were resonating. And I started doing the things that they were sort of suggesting in these videos, like, you know, well, do you think you have a border? Well, where is it? Like, close your eyes and see if you can find the end, where one thing ends and another begins. And started to hear things like, well, if you're a self, where is it? You can take parts of the body away, you can, you can, you know, where's the dividing line between sound and self and vision and stuff. So I started just to do all these things, and a lot of these things I could listen to, and I could tell that there was something really important and something that sort of shifted a little bit in me. So I would just keep listening to them over and over and over and over. And I'm like, okay, I kind of get that. Okay, I kind of get this. Okay, I kind of get that. And just continued to do that, and began meditating again. Although this time, what's interesting is I had something to focus on in a way. Like, I had a little bit of direction. By watching these videos, I understood um, what to get into. Um, when you're sitting there and you're still and doing things like, you like one of the questions I remember, which was very poignant to me, was, you know, remember yourself when you were 5, and then maybe 10 or 15, and then in your 20s, and then in your 30s, or however, and then to however old you are now. There's something that never changed. If you look at your pictures from 5, 10, 15 years ago, you barely recognize yourself. It doesn't even look like you're physically changed. All your cells in your body have been replaced. Your thoughts are probably very, very different from they were, when you were 10 to when you were 15. But something about you never changed. And what is that? And not only what is it, but where is it? And so I started to really sit with things like that. I would just sit there and I would really think to myself, what is it that never changes? You know? And then you start to understand it's kind of that empty awareness that just is, it's observing the observations, it's observing the thoughts, it's observing everything. And there's no judgment to it. It's just this empty, beautiful, empty, pure awareness. And it's the thoughts that come into our head that sort of corrupt and take over. And you really believe that your thoughts are reality. And um, so anyway, so those are the type of things. So those are the more powerful things that I remember. Really kind of shifting my focus, and being in the now. Just realizing that a week before you had a meeting, uh, you would literally be making coffee in the morning and sick to your stomach about this meeting that was going to happen in a week, and it's almost ridiculous. Like, you're making coffee. That's what's happening. That's reality. You have no idea what that meeting is going to entail or how it's going to turn out. And the other thing is, I also noticed that, and just reflecting back through my life, was the fact that nothing was usually anywhere near as terrifying as I made it in my head. If I had to say, give a public speech or something, or talk in front of my employees or something like that, like I would just sit there and stress out about it and just worry about it. And then when I was going through it and actually in that actual moment, it never was as bad as I made it out to be. I can't really think of anything in my life maybe that turned out way worse than I ever imagined it to be. I mean, you have bad days and things like that, but I'm just talking about those events where, like I said, you have to give a speech, or you have to give up and talk in public, or you have a test coming up, or anything of that. Like, that's usually never as bad, ever as bad as you make it out to be. And paying, things like paying attention to my emotions more, and just realizing how, as a society, we're almost trained to sort of bottle up those emotions and push down those emotions and ignore those emotions, especially as a man. We're not supposed to be emotional. We're supposed to be like the Vulcans that just think logically and don't let anything bother them, you know. That's for women to do. You know, that's the way I grew up. That's the almost the way I was taught indirectly. And obviously that's a load of bull. Um, so that was so all these things are sort of brewing in my head like a big cauldron of thoughts. And I would just watch these things all the time, pretty regularly. I mean, daily. And still doing the drinking though. Didn't let that stop me. But and what's funny is I knew, like I said, there was no pretending about what I wanted, which was just to get out of here. I just wanted off this planet. I wanted off this earth. If there's an afterlife, cool. If not, just get me out of here, you know? Uh, so, uh, so one day I'm sitting and I was not sitting very long and everything completely collapsed. The fact I almost describe it as like layers of clothing or coats that we put on. Um, so when you're five, somebody says you're ugly, and you kind of put a shirt on, and then somebody reinforces that. So then a few years later, and that good coat goes on, and then somebody else says you're stupid or you're, and these are particularly strong and painful when they're coming from your parents, like you're an idiot, you're a moron, you're a jerk, like things like this. So every time that happens, you start to believe it more and more. Society says, hey, why don't you have a job? Well, you'll be lazy. So then that goes on. And so by the time you get into your 30s, 40s, 50s, you just have this, and it's all a vision of yourself, but you just have layers upon layers upon layers of these beliefs and things that people have said to you that you take for real and take as reality. You don't even think about it, but they're just beliefs, they're just thoughts, but they are as real to you as your arm. So, and a lot of people do this obviously with politics as well. Their beliefs are so strong that they will die for them, you know. Uh, and but that's not reality, you know. I mean, reality again is what's in front of us. So all of a sudden, this whole house of cards that I had my whole life about all these things I was told that I had to believe and do and believed about myself. Like, I was not in a good place. I've not been in a good place for years and years and years and years. And so that really starts to take hold as a reality. Like, man, I just can't get it going. I don't know. There's something wrong with me. Maybe I am an idiot. So you start to feel judged everywhere, especially by yourself. And then the belief that I am the separate self, um, and and then that I am not my thoughts. All that stuff just collapsed, just absolutely collapsed. That when I realized I was just this awareness, and it really clicked. It wasn't just like somebody told me this, and I said, "Oh, okay, that makes sense." Like it fell into place, and my whole reality collapsed, and it was the scariest thing I've ever had happen to me in my entire life. I thought I was going to die. I jumped up with just adrenaline pounding through my body, and I ran. Even though I knew logically there was no, what was I running from? It wasn't like there was something in the room, but I guess the fight or flight took in, it hit me so hard that I ran outside, and I was hyperventilating, and I was so freaked out and so scared because basically my entire ego, my entire reality, my everything I thought was real just literally fell apart. And my brain felt like it was going to explode. Like like it just felt like I had gotten the biggest download of my entire life, and it was tingling, burning, uh almost to the point of pain, um, and just buzzing. And I didn't know what was happening. And I just sat there. I ended up finally stopping and sort of sitting there, and I'm hyperventilating, and I'm like, just scared, basically. Um, and then after about 15 minutes or so, I just started to tell myself, okay, you're still alive. Like, you didn't drop dead. Maybe part of you did, but you're still breathing. You're still alive. And so that took a while. I finally, it took me quite some time to just sort of calm down and get it together. But the interesting thing was then, after the panic, uh, then the shift happened that I just all of a sudden the world was a completely different place for me. It was super vivid, really alive. Um, and it just it almost it actually ended up being pretty magical. I just saw other people, and it was incredible just to watch people and just know that there's this sort of alive awareness as well. But you could see a lot of people just like I was, like, completely wrapped up in thought. Um, it was a very scary initially, but really amazing experience. And my life has never been the same. I mean, it shifted the reality shifted. My whole world just completely tilted on its axis. And then the last few years, I've basically just been sort of like readapting myself to this complete new reality. And and I will say that uh I'm nowhere near any kind of an end. uh the ego, I will say this much: the ego will find its way back, and it'll probably latch onto your spirituality. So there's something called Zen stink, which I had for a while. And then, like, so the new ego is, I am super smart, I am so above all these people, I know so much, I am very wise, and I am very very, I am the spiritual guru. And that's a load of crap. But the ego loves to attach to things, and it'll attach to anything. So yeah, I went through that. That was probably about 6 months later when I just noticed myself being very short with other people, and I started sitting there and exploring, okay, where's this emotion coming from? What's happening? Why am I feeling this way? And when I got down to it, it was like, oh my god, the ego returned. And not only did it return, it's attached itself to my spiritual growth and vision. So, and it's funny because it happens to so many people. Like, I'm not sure how long I had that, but I look on a lot of different sites now. Like, I'm on some spirituality sites and things like that, just because I enjoy hearing about this. I mean, that's why I'm doing this YouTube channel, is basically for to hear other people's journeys and everything. And there's always a few people in the chats that are just, it's all Zen stink. Like, well, actually, the real reason you're doing this is very, it's kind of comical when you see it from the outside, because you also realize you're one of those people. But anyway, so that shifted everything, and I kind of felt like it actually reminds me in a way, if anyone's ever heard NDEs, near death experiences, it reminds me almost of that, because I died, like that whole illusion of Jeff literally died. Like, it's gone. Like, I still have the same personality for the most part, except for I don't take that much seriously now. And in a good way. I mean, I don't stress out and make myself sick as bad. Still happens. I but another thing I've learned is to pay attention to that type of thing. Pay attention to your emotions and allow them to come in. Like just say, hey, you're welcome here, man. And let them move through you like a cloud system is a great, I think, is one of the great analogies. It's just and that is exactly what thoughts do too. They sort of fade in, fade out, fade in, fade out. Same thing with emotions. They fade in and fade out. And the problem is that we identify with them as us, as reality. And that's, I mean, an emotion is part of you, but it's just a very um it, it's just a system passing through. And um you're not those emotions. You have emotions, you just aren't emotions. You have thoughts, you just aren't your thoughts. um but when you start but when you believe those thoughts and believe those emotions as yourself, they're awfully sticky and hard to get rid of. But so I just, there's a lot of different techniques. I think I may actually talk, on different topics, kind of like what I'm talking to you right now about, um, as far as, working with emotions and thoughts. And um, thoughts are big. I mean, thoughts, the fact that there's distance between objects is a thought. Um, the fact that we automatically label everything and then ignore it. Once it, there's a saying, and I don't know the exact saying, but it's something like, once you give something a label, it disappears. Because now, as humans, like a tree is a tree is a tree. So we just see tree, we look, our eyes just blow right by it. Like, but we never see how beautiful they are and how individual they are, and just how powerful and how just brilliant it all is. So I know I've kind of rambled a bit, but I definitely did want to share that experience with you. It was scary. Some people I know go right into the bliss. They don't have the scary experience. Um, and they just sort of have that spiritual awakening high. Some people do it for days, weeks, months. I've even heard, people do it for a year or longer. Did not happen to me. Mine actually lasted about a week or two, probably 2 weeks. And but things were never the same. It's not like once you go, there's that saying, once you walk through that door, you can never go back. There's just no way back through that door. You can pretend not to, or pretend that it didn't happen, but those experiences just change your life, and change your life forever. So, and in a beautiful way. And I will say another thing before I log off here, and that is, this is definitely not all unicorns and rainbows. Okay. Dark nights of the soul, it's a very common thing now, and that's very real. uh when you bury emotions and you have beliefs and emotions that have been there for decades, um when you start to shine that light around in those dark places, they come out, uh, and they don't come out. They usually do not come out very easily. The gloves come off, and it can be, there can be some very low lows, but at the same time, that there's this progression taking place inside of you. And then I did learn that the reason I was so unhappy was because I gave the keys to society, the keys to my life to society, and basically allowed them to dictate um, what happiness was. And if you've ever watched television or anything like that, the happiness is always going to be in the next thing you buy, the next thing you drink, the next thing you eat, the next relationship you have, the next cool car. I mean, and that is so not true. That's why people are so unhappy and so angst ridden. It's because they are desperately searching for happiness, but they are doing it outside of themselves. And I hate to say this, but the church actually helps reinforce that, because with the church, a lot of the happiness, it can only be done through the church and through Jesus. And the only way to get to Jesus is through, um, is usually through the church. And the Jesus character is someone outside of yourself. Again, Jesus was actually saying the opposite. Like, the kingdom of heaven is within you. That's the message, and that's the truth. Like, that's where reality is. That's where happiness is. It is inside you. So I'm telling you right now, you don't have to listen to me. There are some fantastic teachers out there, in YouTube land and on the internet and in the library and in the bookstore. But just find one that resonates with you, because everybody resonates with things differently. One teaching for me might spark me, whereas another one will not, where it's the complete opposite for another person. Excuse me. So just, yeah, to get out there and just start dipping your fingers in that pie and see what you come up with and what you can find. So uh and it is life changing, I promise you. It's what you're looking for. And the beauty of it is nobody else has it but you. It's just you. It's you, um and inside yourself, and you don't have to pay anyone to find it, or give people anything to find it, or any. It's just right there. It's right for the taking. So anyway, if you have any comments, leave them below. I will be interested to hearing anybody else's story. If you are interested in sharing a story similar to mine, or obviously maybe very unique for mine, drop me an email, and enjoy the rest of your day. I am so glad that you got to watch this, and hopefully it will help you as much as it helped me. Hi, everyone. Thanks for watching the video. Remember to subscribe and like, and I'll see you next time.